You're standing in the shadow of an ancient temple, your fingertips brushing against carvings so precise they seem to defy the tools of their time. These swirling patterns, interlocking circles, spirals, and stars aren't just art. They're a language of sacred geometry, whispered across millennia by hidden schools that once thrived beneath these very stones. Picture this: deep within temple vaults, far from prying eyes, initiates gathered to unravel the universe's deepest secrets. They believed numbers and shapes held divine power, that the same geometry shaping a seashell could map the heavens. And what if they were right? From the pyramids of Giza to the mandalas of India, these sacred geometry schools left clues embedded in stone and scripture. Their teachings weren't just about measurement or architecture, they were blueprints for enlightenment. Think of the Parthenon's perfect proportions or the flower of life etched into Osirian's walls. These weren't accidents, they were deliberate acts of reverence, a way to encode cosmic truths into tangible form. The initiates who studied here didn't just learn math, they practiced it like a meditation, aligning themselves with the rhythms of creation itself. But why bury these schools beneath temples? Why cloak such knowledge in secrecy? The answer lies in the transformative power of sacred geometry. Those who mastered it didn't just build structures, they shaped civilizations. The compass and straightedge became tools of revelation, revealing hidden harmonies between music, astronomy, and the human soul. Today, as we uncover their classrooms hidden underground, we're not just dusting off old stones. We're piecing together a lost science of the sacred, one that might still hold keys to understanding our place in the cosmos. So let's step beyond the temple gates and into the hidden halls where geometry was once the path to the divine. The story of sacred geometry begins not with numbers on a page, but with the human gaze turned upward toward the stars, the seasons, the unfathomable patterns of nature. Ancient civilizations noticed something profound. The same spirals in sunflower seeds echoed in distant galaxies, the hexagons of honeycombs mirrored in basalt columns, the perfect symmetry of a snowflake repeated in the mandalas of temple floors. This wasn't coincidence, it was revelation. To the Egyptians, geometry was the handwriting of the gods. They designed the Great Pyramid with such precision that its base perimeter divided by twice its height gives us pi, a mathematical constant they shouldn't have known, yet encoded flawlessly in stone. Meanwhile, in Greece, Plato's Academy bore the inscription, "Let no one ignorant of geometry enter here," for the Greeks saw geometry as the bridge between the earthly and the divine. But here's the mystery: these cultures, separated by continents and centuries, all arrived at the same conclusions. The golden ratio 1.618 appears in the Parthenon's columns, the chambers of the Great Pyramid, even the proportions of the human face. How? Because beneath the temples, in candlelit chambers, initiates shared a secret curriculum. They didn't just study shapes, they meditated on them, believing that by contemplating the circle, a shape with no beginning or end, they could touch eternity. The compass and straightedge weren't mere tools, they were instruments of transcendence, tracing the hidden order of creation. Consider the flower of life, a pattern of overlapping circles found in Egypt's Osirian, China's Forbidden City, and even Celtic manuscripts. More than decoration, it was a teaching device, a map of how energy weaves the fabric of reality. Initiates learn to draw it freehand, not as an exercise in skill, but as a ritual of alignment. They understood what modern science now confirms, that at the quantum level, everything vibrates in geometric harmony. The temples above these schools weren't just places of worship, They were living textbooks, their pillars and altars placed according to sacred ratios to amplify their power. What's astonishing is how these schools guarded their knowledge. The Pythagorean Brotherhood, for instance, swore oaths of secrecy. Death awaited those who spoke openly of the irrational numbers they'd discovered. Why such extremes? Because they knew geometry wasn't just about building better cities. It was about building awakened minds. When you stand in a cathedral designed with sacred proportions, your heartbeat slows, your breath deepens, your very biology responds to the hidden mathematics around you. That's the legacy these schools protected, not just equations but an experiential science of the soul. Beneath the towering spires and ornate facades of ancient temples, a secret world thrived in shadow. These underground chambers weren't mere storage rooms or forgotten crypts. They were meticulously designed classrooms where the very walls hummed with intention. Take Egypt's Temple of Hathor at Dendera, where narrow staircases descend into a subterranean labyrinth. Here, the ceilings are low, the corridors tight, forcing initiates to move with deliberate slowness. The walls curve inward, creating a whispering gallery effect, where even the softest utterance would reverberate, transforming mathematical lessons into vibrational experiences. This wasn't just architecture, it was alchemy. The builders understood that specific shapes could alter consciousness, that a perfectly proportioned chamber might tune the human mind like an instrument. In India, the stepwells of Gujarat hid even grander secrets. Far below the water's surface, hidden corridors branched into octagonal chambers adorned with intricate geometric carvings. These weren't just decorative, they functioned as cosmic calculators. The angles of sunlight piercing through precisely aligned shafts would trace sacred patterns across the floors at solstices, turning entire rooms into sundials. Students would sit for hours, watching light dance along the flower of life etchings, internalizing the rhythms of the cosmos. Meanwhile, in Mesoamerica, the Mayans built cenotes, natural sinkholes into their temples, believing these portals to the underworld doubled as amplifiers for sacred knowledge. Echoes in these water-filled caverns could sustain a single note for nearly 12 seconds, creating a natural harmonic resonance that modern scientists have measured at frequencies known to induce meditative states. But why go underground? The answer lies in the earth itself. These schools tapped into telluric currents, subtle electromagnetic energies that flow through the planet's crust. Granite-lined chambers, like those beneath Greece's Delphi, acted as natural capacitors, storing and focusing this energy. Initiates reported visions when meditating in these spaces, as if the very stones whispered secrets. The builders even incorporated piezoelectric materials like quartz into floor designs, which generate tiny electrical charges when compressed, meaning every footstep might have literally illuminated their path to understanding. The true genius of these hidden schools reveals itself in their survival. While surface temples faced wars and weathering, their subterranean counterparts endured, preserving knowledge through millennia. Today, when archaeologists brush dust from these chambers, they're not just uncovering history, they're rediscovering a lost science of sacred space, where geometry, acoustics, and geology converge to create portals of perception. The masters who taught here didn't just want students to learn sacred geometry, they wanted them to become it, to feel the universe's hidden patterns thrumming through their very bones. The curriculum of these hidden schools wasn't just about memorizing shapes or solving equations. It was an initiation into seeing the world through what the Egyptians called the eye of the heart. At the core of their teachings lay the flower of life, a pattern so fundamental that modern physicists now recognize its resemblance to the way energy waves interfere with one another at the quantum level. Students would spend years mastering its 19 interlocking circles, not with rulers or protractors, but through meditative repetition. They understood this design as the blueprint of creation itself, appearing in everything from the arrangement of petals to the orbits of planets. Then came the golden ratio 1.618, a proportion so precise it governed the growth of nautilus shells and the spiral arms of galaxies. But in these underground chambers, it was more than a number. Initiates learned to feel it in their own bodies, measuring the ratio between their forearm and hand, or the placement of their facial features. The Greeks built this divine proportion into their temples, knowing that when humans stood before structures designed with these ratios, something profound shifted in their perception. It was neuroscience before neuroscience, an intuitive grasp of how certain geometries could elevate consciousness. The Platonic solids formed the third pillar of their sacred science. These 5 perfect shapes, tetrahedron, cube, octahedron, dodecahedron, and icosahedron, were considered the building blocks of reality. Each corresponded to an element: earth, air, fire, water, and the elusive ether. Students didn't just study their angles, they constructed them from copper wire or carved them in crystal, believing these forms could channel specific energies. When Plato wrote that the Creator used these shapes to embroider the universe, he was sharing knowledge preserved from these underground schools. Astronomy wasn't a separate subject, but the living textbook through which all other lessons flowed. The pyramids aligned with Orion's belt not just as celestial markers, but as vibrational gateways. Initiates tracked Venus's 8-year dance across the sky, recognizing its pentagram path as a giant flower of life etched in starlight. Architecture became applied cosmology. Cathedral rose windows mirroring galactic spirals, temple doorways framed to capture solstice sunlight like a sacred sundial. Perhaps most revolutionary was their understanding of sound. These schools taught that geometry wasn't just seen, it was heard. Using monochords with movable bridges, students discovered musical intervals matched planetary orbits. The same ratio defining a perfect fifth in music also governed the distance between Earth and Venus. They built chambers where chanting certain tones would make sand on metal plates form into perfect geometric patterns, proving vibration shapes matter millennia before cymatics experiments in modern labs. This wasn't education as we know it today. There were no exams, only initiations, moments when a student suddenly saw the connection between the angles of a pyramid and the structure of their own DNA. Graduation came not with a diploma, but with a visceral knowing that they were walking geometry, that the universe's grand design pulsed through their very breath. These sacred temples functioned as far more than spiritual centers. They were vast repositories of knowledge, meticulously engineered to safeguard wisdom across centuries. Imagine walking through the grand halls of Karnak or Angkor Wat, running your fingers along walls covered in intricate carvings. Every line, every curve served a dual purpose, a prayer to the gods and a lesson in mathematics, astronomy, and even acoustics. The builders didn't just carve symbols, they embedded entire curricula into stone, ensuring that even if languages faded or empires crumbled, the knowledge would remain legible to those who understood its geometric language. Take the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, where the Aditon, the innermost sanctuary, was designed with precise dimensions to amplify the oracle's whispers. The chamber's elliptical shape created natural sound waves that made soft-spoken prophecies reverberate with otherworldly resonance. This wasn't just theatrical effect, it was applied physics, a way to demonstrate how vibration shapes reality. Similarly, India's Brihadiswara temple houses a massive lingam in its sanctum, positioned so that sunlight at the equinoxes traces a perfect path along its axis, transforming the shrine into a celestial calendar. These weren't random architectural choices. They were deliberate acts of preservation, ensuring that even if books burned or oral traditions were lost, the stones themselves would continue to teach. Celestial alignment was their masterstroke. The Mayan pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itzá becomes a slithering serpent of light during equinoxes, as shadows cascade down its steps in a precise, undulating pattern. This spectacle wasn't merely ceremonial, it encoded advanced astronomical knowledge about solar cycles. Likewise, Egypt's Abu symbol was oriented so that twice a year, sunlight would penetrate over 200 feet into its inner sanctum, illuminating statues of gods seated in the darkness. These light shows weren't just for awe, they were mnemonics, visual lessons in planetary motion meant to endure long after their creators were gone. The true brilliance of these temples lies in their redundancy. Knowledge wasn't stored in just one form, it was duplicated across mediums. A single principle might appear as a mural, resonate in a chamber's acoustics, and reenact through seasonal light play. This multi-layered approach ensured that even if one method of interpretation was lost, others would survive. Like a cosmic backup drive, these structures held multiple copies of humanity's most precious insights, waiting for future generations to decipher them anew. The temple wasn't just a building, it was a living syllabus, written in the universal language of geometry, light, and sound. Beneath the Great Pyramid's shadow, where desert winds whisper across millennia-old stones, a deeper mystery pulses through hidden passageways. The pyramid's very architecture is a silent lecture in sacred geometry. Its base perimeter, divided by twice its height, yields pi to an astonishing precision, while its alignment with true north deviates by just 3/60ths of a degree. But these aren't merely architectural feats, they're deliberate signatures of a lost curriculum. Recent ground-penetrating radar scans reveal anomalies beneath the Giza Plateau, a network of chambers and tunnels too precise to be natural formations. These may be the remnants of the legendary Hall of Records, where initiates once gathered to study the universe's geometric language under flickering torchlight. Consider the pyramid's king's chamber, its walls constructed from granite blocks weighing up to 70 tons each. The room's dimensions form a perfect 2-to-1 rectangle, resonating at a frequency of 144 MHz, a harmonic that modern researchers associate with heightened states of consciousness. The coffer inside isn't just a sarcophagus. Its interior volume matches the biblical Ark of the Covenant specifications, and its proportions encode the golden ratio. Such precision suggests these spaces weren't tombs, but vibrational classrooms where students absorbed knowledge through resonance as much as instruction. The Sphinx guards even deeper secrets. French archaeologist Émile Barré's 1920s excavations uncovered a submerged chamber beneath its pores, lined with geometric reliefs matching descriptions from the Hermetic text's ancient scrolls speaking of underground halls where initiates underwent the baptism of geometry. Nearby, the Osirians' flooded corridors display the flower of life carved into red granite, its circles intersecting at angles that correspond to celestial alignments. These submerged chambers weren't accidental. Water amplified their acoustic properties, turning whispered lessons into reverberating harmonics that could be felt in the bones. What's most startling is how this knowledge was protected. The pyramid's descending passages align with specific stars at precise historical dates, acting as celestial locks. Only during certain astronomical configurations would shafts flood with starlight, illuminating hidden doorways. This wasn't mere ceremony, it was a security system ensuring only those who understood cosmic cycles could access the innermost teachings. The ancients didn't just bury their geometric legacy, they encoded it in stone and sky, creating a living puzzle that still challenges us today. modern laser scans reveal microscopic tool marks on chamber walls, spirals and arcs matching the motion of sacred geometry compasses. These aren't construction guidelines, they're practice sketches, the ancient equivalent of student notebooks. Nearby, niches in the walls correspond to human height, suggesting initiates stood for hours tracing geometric proofs in air as part of their training. The pyramid, then, wasn't just a monument, it was the world's most sophisticated textbook. Its every angle a lesson, its every corridor a chapter in humanity's forgotten geometric awakening. In the olive groves of ancient Greece, where the scent of time mixed with sea air, a revolution in human thought was quietly unfolding. The Pythagorean Brotherhood, founded by the enigmatic Pythagoras after his 22 years of study in Egypt's temple schools, didn't just teach mathematics, they worshipped it. To them, numbers weren't abstract symbols but living forces shaping reality. The school's initiates swore blood oaths of secrecy, for the knowledge they guarded was considered sacred. The discovery that musical harmonies could be expressed as simple ratios, that the planets moved to a geometric symphony, and that the soul itself might be purified through the contemplation of perfect shapes. Pythagoras' most radical insight was that the universe operates according to mathematical laws. When he famously declared, "All is number," he wasn't speaking metaphorically. His students proved this by experimenting with vibrating strings, finding that plucking a string half its length produced an octave, 2/3 created a fifth, revealing music as audible geometry. This revelation birthed the concept of the music of the spheres, the idea that celestial bodies move in harmonic resonance, a theory modern astrophysics has since confirmed in the electromagnetic vibrations pulsating through space. Plato later expanded these ideas in his Academy, where the phrase, "Let no one ignorant of geometry enter," was carved above the door. His dialogue Timaeus describes the cosmos as a living geometric construct, with the 5 Platonic solids forming the very fabric of existence. The tetrahedron symbolized fire's sharpness, the cube represented Earth's stability, while the dodecahedron, a shape with 12 pentagonal faces, was reserved for the heavens themselves. These weren't poetic metaphors but precise metaphysical models, taught through intricate clay models and meditative visualizations in torchlit caves near Athens. The mystery school's influence rippled far beyond their hidden chambers. Euclid's Elements, the foundation of Western geometry for over 2 millennia, codified teachings first whispered in these sacred spaces. The golden ratio, which appears in everything from seashells to galaxy arms, became the secret backbone of classical art and architecture. When Phidias sculpted the Parthenon statues or designed its columns, he did so using Pythagorean proportions, creating forms that still strike viewers with an uncanny sense of harmony. What set these schools apart was their holistic approach. Geometry wasn't confined to dusty scrolls, it was lived. Students spent mornings drawing perfect circles freehand as spiritual exercises, afternoons studying the geometric proofs hidden in Homer's poetry, and evenings observing how the same ratios governing musical scales appeared in planetary orbits. Their greatest secret, that by internalizing these patterns, the human mind could mirror the divine intellect. The compass and straightedge weren't just tools but keys to awakening, turning abstract lines into pathways of transcendence. The legacy of these mystery schools echoes in unexpected places. Renaissance thinkers like Da Vinci and Kepler pored over recovered Greek texts, recognizing sacred geometry as nature's hidden language. Modern physicists find the Platonic solids reappearing in quantum field theory and crystal structures. Even the spiral of your DNA follows the same logarithmic curve Pythagoras once traced in sand. The Greeks didn't invent these patterns, they uncovered a universal code. proving that beneath life's apparent chaos lies an exquisite mathematical order, waiting to be decoded by those who dare to see with geometric eyes. India's temple universities wove sacred geometry into the very stones underfoot, turning corridors into cosmic classrooms. At the Ramanathaswamy Temple, 1,200 pillars stretch in perfect symmetry, each carved with geometric mandalas so precise they seem to pulse with hidden energy. These weren't mere decorations, they were textbooks in stone. Beneath the temple's towering gopurams, scholars would walk these hallways for hours, their fingers tracing the interlocking circles and triangles as a form of moving meditation. The patterns served as focal points, guiding the mind beyond ordinary thought into states where mathematical harmony and spiritual awakening became one. The Vedas called these designs Yantras, geometric maps of the universe's underlying energy. Unlike static symbols, yantras were living diagrams believed to generate specific vibrational fields when contemplated. Take the Sri Yantra, a complex web of 9 interlocking triangles radiating from a central point. Tantric texts describe it as the blueprint of creation itself, its angles corresponding to the ratios at which energy condenses into matter. Students didn't just study these shapes, they internalized them through elaborate rituals, drawing yantras in rice powder or mercury at precise astronomical timings, aligning their practice with celestial rhythms. What made these temple universities revolutionary was their fusion of science and spirituality. The mandalas adorning walls weren't arbitrary, they encoded advanced mathematical concepts. The fractal-like column patterns drawn daily at temple thresholds demonstrated recursive geometry centuries before Western mathematicians coined the term. The temple tanks, with their stepped geometric proportions, acted as resonance chambers, amplifying the chanting of Vedic verses into harmonic frequencies that modern studies show can alter brainwave patterns. Even the temple's layout mirrored cosmic order, with concentric corridors representing orbital paths of planets, turning worship into an embodied astronomy lesson. The true mastery lay in application. Architects trained here designed cities like Madurai as giant yantras, with streets radiating from the temple like the spokes of a cosmic wheel. These urban plans weren't just functional, they were vibrational ecosystems engineered to amplify specific energies. A devotee walking the temple's outermost corridor would unknowingly trace a path matching Venus's 8-year cycle, their footsteps syncing with celestial time. This wasn't superstition, it was sacred engineering, a recognition that human consciousness could be tuned like an instrument when immersed in geometric perfection. Today, as laser scans reveal microscopic precision in these carvings, angles accurate to fractions of a degree, we're rediscovering what these scholars knew. That geometry isn't just a language of form, but of transformation. When a modern practitioner sits before a yantra, they're not just observing an ancient diagram, they're entering a classroom without walls, where the same lessons whispered in stone centuries ago still vibrate with the power to awaken. High in the jungles of Central America, the Mayans engineered their temples as celestial timekeepers, each stone placed with an astronomer's precision. At Chichen Itza, the pyramid of Kukulkan becomes a slithering serpent of light during equinoxes, as shadows cascade down its 91 steps, 4 staircases totaling 364 steps, plus the platform making 365, a perfect solar calendar in stone. But this was more than a spectacular light show. It was a multidimensional classroom. The temple's alignment with Venus wasn't just symbolic. The Mayans tracked the planet's 584-day cycle with such accuracy that their calculations were off by just 2 hours over a century. They didn't merely observe the heavens, they conversed with them, using architecture as their language. Beneath Palink's Temple of the Inscriptions, A hidden staircase descends into the underworld, not as a metaphor, but as a literal passage to knowledge. When archaeologists first cleared the rubble from this tunnel in the 1950s, they discovered walls lined with geometric glyphs depicting the Mayan understanding of time as interlocking cycles. The temple's central crypt housed the tomb of Pakal the Great, his sarcophagus lid carved with a cosmic diagram showing the ruler suspended between sacred geometry, his body aligned with the world tree, its branches mirroring the Fibonacci spiral found in galaxies. This wasn't mere art, it was an advanced lesson in space-time, suggesting the Mayans understood celestial mechanics as vibrational patterns long before modern physics. What set the Mayan approach apart was their fusion of mathematics and mythology. Their sacred ratios appeared not just in temples, but in everyday life. The proportions of their pottery, the layout of cornfields, even the rhythmic patterns of their ceremonial dances. The Dresden Codex, one of the few surviving Mayan texts, reveals tables predicting solar eclipses and Venus transits with baffling precision, all calculated using base 20 mathematics and intricate geometric progressions. Their concept of zero wasn't just a placeholder, it represented the void from which all geometric forms emerged, a notion echoed in quantum physics' understanding of vacuum energy. Deep within Kapan's labyrinthine tunnels, recent LiDAR scans have revealed chambers with walls covered in numerical glyphs arranged in grid patterns, what scholars now believe were interactive teaching tools. Priests would guide initiates through calculations using these stone blackboards, their lessons synchronized with celestial events. When Venus rose as the evening star, students might solve problems tied to its motion. When the Pleiades culminated overhead, the wall's acoustic properties would amplify chants tuned to specific frequencies. This was education as sacred theater, where the cosmos itself became the ultimate teacher, and every architectural detail from the angle of a stairway to the echo in a chamber was engineered to awaken geometric intuition. The Mayans' greatest insight was that time wasn't linear but fractal. Their long count calendar didn't simply track days, it revealed nested cycles within cycles, from the 20-day Yunal to the 52-year calendar round and beyond. These intervals weren't arbitrary, they corresponded to harmonic ratios found in nature, from the gestation periods of animals to the orbital resonances of planets. By encoding these relationships into temple dimensions, they created structures that vibrated in sympathy with cosmic rhythms. Modern researchers have measured infrasound resonances in Mayan pyramids at frequencies known to alter brainwave states, suggesting these weren't just places of study, but instruments of consciousness transformation. The true lesson of the Mayan classrooms may have been this: to understand sacred geometry isn't just to measure the world, it's to merge with its hidden music. The legend of Atlantis isn't just about a sunken city, it's a whisper of a civilization that may have understood sacred geometry as a living force. Ancient texts from Egypt to Greece speak of Atlantean priests wielding crystal harmonics, their temples humming with energy grids tuned to the Earth's own frequencies. Plato's dialogues describe Atlantis as a ringed city built with perfect geometric proportions, its concentric canals mirroring the flower of life pattern. When the continent supposedly sank beneath the waves, survivors scattered across the globe, carrying blueprints of this lost science. Some theorists point to eerie similarities between Egyptian and Mayan pyramid structures separated by oceans yet sharing uncanny geometric alignments, as evidence of this shared Atlantean heritage. In the temples of Edfu, hieroglyphs tell of the Shemsu Hor, the followers of Horus, who arrived after a great cataclysm bearing divine knowledge. These tall, pale-skinned figures were said to have built the earliest Egyptian monuments using vibration and sound, techniques echoing Atlantean legends. Similarly, the Popol Vuh, the sacred text of the Maya, speaks of bearded white men arriving from across the Eastern Sea, teaching advanced astronomy and geometry. Both cultures share a peculiar reverence for the same sacred ratios, like the golden mean and the square roots of 2 and 3, encoded into structures from the Great Pyramid to Teotihuacan's Avenue of the Dead. The most compelling clues lie in the materials. Atlantean lore describes fire crystals capable of harnessing earth energies, a concept mirrored in the piezoelectric quartz embedded in Egyptian temple floors, and the Mayans' use of crystalline limestone that resonates at specific frequencies. Modern researchers have detected unusual electromagnetic anomalies beneath sites like Giza and Machu Picchu, where ancient builders positioned stones along ley lines, creating what some believe are remnants of Atlantean energy grids. The Yucatan cenotes, natural sinkholes the Maya considered portals to the underworld, form precise geometric patterns when mapped from above, alignments that correspond to Plato's descriptions of Atlantis' water channels. What if these scattered fragments are more than coincidence? The Dogon tribe of Mali, untouched by modern civilization until the 20th century, preserved star maps of Sirius's companion star, knowledge they attributed to amphibious beings from a sunken land. Their sacred granaries were built in Fibonacci spirals, a design also found in Cretan labyrinths and Celtic stone circles. From the Bahamas Bimini Road to Japan's Yonaguni Monument, underwater structures bearing geometric precision keep fueling the theory that Atlantis' schools didn't vanish, they went underground, their teachings resurfacing wherever sacred geometry appears. The real mystery isn't whether Atlantis existed, but why so many unconnected cultures encoded the same geometric truths, as if following some ancient, drowned syllabus. The Vesica Piscis wasn't just two overlapping circles, it was a cosmic womb. Ancient initiates saw in its almond-shaped intersection the birth portal of creation itself, where spirit met matter. When medieval masons carved this symbol above cathedral doorways, they weren't just decorating stone, they were marking thresholds between worlds. The precise mathematical ratio of its height to width, 1 to the square root of 3, appears in nature's most fundamental structures, the arrangement of flower petals, the spacing of tree branches, even the proportions of human DNA. But for sacred geometry adepts, this shape held deeper secrets. Its curves traced the exact path sunlight takes during Earth solstices when charted against certain temple walls. Some scholars argue the Vesica Piscis was the original blueprint for the Christian ichthys symbol, repurposed by early followers to encode geometric wisdom beneath religious iconography. Then there's the seed of life, 7 circles woven into a flower-like pattern found etched into temple walls from Abydos to Kyoto. More than a static image, it was a kinetic teaching tool. Initiates would meditate on its unfolding sequence, 1 circle the unity of all things, then 2 duality, until the 7th completed the primordial structure. This wasn't philosophy, it was practical mysticism. The same 7-step pattern governs embryonic development, crystal formation, and even the musical scale's octave. In underground chambers beneath Malta's megalithic temples, archaeologists discovered stone slabs where initiates apparently traced these circles with copper tools, their repetitive motions designed to imprint the pattern not just in stone, but in consciousness itself. Metatron's cube stood as the grand synthesis of these symbols, a 3-dimensional matrix of 13 spheres interconnected by perfectly straight lines. Named after the celestial scribe of Hebrew tradition, this geometric marvel contained all 5 Platonic solids within its framework. Medieval alchemists believed mastering its structure allowed adepts to manipulate the fabric of reality, while modern quantum physicists note its uncanny resemblance to the geometry of subatomic particle interactions. The cube's most startling feature, When rotated at specific angles, it casts shadows that perfectly match the flower of life and tree of life diagrams, proof that these weren't separate symbols, but facets of a unified geometric language. What made these symbols revolutionary was how they functioned as living equations. The Sri Yantras' interlocking triangles, for instance, weren't just static art when meditated upon. They produced measurable changes in brainwave patterns, as modern EEG studies confirm. Similarly, the labyrinth designs found in Gothic cathedrals and Cretan palaces served as walking meditations, their turns and reversals mirroring the neural pathways of enlightenment. Initiates didn't merely study these forms, they danced them, sang them, even ate from plates inscribed with them, internalizing geometry through every sense. The true test came in the final initiation, where adepts would spend 7 days in complete darkness with only these symbols glowing faintly on the walls. As their eyes adjusted, the shapes would appear to move, revealing hidden dimensions, a phenomenon modern science explains as neural adaptation, but which the ancients regarded as the moment when mathematical truth became direct experience. These weren't just symbols to be understood, they were doorways to be walked through, each one a stepping stone on the path to perceiving the geometric heartbeat of the universe. These priest-scientists didn't just teach, they embodied the marriage of heaven and earth. Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe of ancient Egypt, wasn't merely a mythological figure. He represented the archetype of the sacred geometer. Temple inscriptions depict him holding a palette not just for writing, but for measuring his stylus, tracing the angles between stars as easily as hieroglyphs. The Greeks later honored this tradition through Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great sage whose emerald tablets supposedly held the keys to aligning human consciousness with cosmic geometry. What's striking is how these figures transcended culture. In India, the rishis composed the Vedas with the same precision others reserved for temple blueprints, their hymns encoding geometric truths in meter and rhythm. A single verse might map the golden ratio through syllable counts, transforming poetry into a secret mathematics lesson. These guardians operated on a razor's edge between revelation and concealment. The Hindu sage Aryabhata, who calculated pi to 4 decimal places in the 5th century, wrote his breakthroughs in cryptic couplets, knowing only initiates would grasp their full meaning. Similarly, the architect Imhotep, credited with designing Egypt's first pyramid, left no written manuals, only structures so precise they function as 3-dimensional textbooks. Their teaching methods were as ingenious as they were subtle. A Vedic master might have students chant specific frequencies while walking labyrinths, their footsteps syncing with planetary vibrations. Egyptian initiates underwent eye-opening rituals where geometric patterns were projected onto temple ceilings using polished bronze mirrors, creating immersive celestial maps. The survival of this knowledge hinged on a sacred chain of transmission. In the mystery schools of Eleusis, senior adepts whispered geometric secrets directly into initiates' ears during darkness rituals, a practice ensuring no written record could be intercepted. The Mayans took this further, training select scribes to calculate Venus cycles using nothing but knotted cords and memory palaces. What united these diverse traditions was a shared understanding. Geometry wasn't information to be hoarded, but wisdom to be awakened within each student through direct experience. Modern archaeology offers tantalizing clues about their daily lives. Scratched into the walls of a hidden chamber beneath Saqqara, researchers found a series of concentric circles with annotations in Old Kingdom hieratic script, not royal decrees, but a teacher's corrections on a student's flawed attempt to square the circle. Nearby, a palette still stained with red ochre suggests these masters used color-coded diagrams, much like modern professors annotate equations, the real revelation. These weren't secluded monks, but active participants in society. The same priest who calculated the Nile's floods using sacred ratios might also design marketplaces to harmonic proportions, ensuring entire cities vibrated with hidden order. Their legacy challenges our modern divide between science and spirituality. When a rishi described the universe as a net of jewels where each gem reflects all others, he anticipated fractal geometry by millennia. Hermes' axiom, as above, so below, wasn't poetic mysticism, it was a working principle, proven daily in the way temple dimensions mirrored celestial distances. These guardians didn't just preserve knowledge, they cultivated a way of seeing, training generations to recognize the geometric pulse beneath life's apparent chaos. Their greatest lesson, that the compass and straightedge were never just tools, but bridges between the measurable and the miraculous. The path into these hidden halls of geometric wisdom was not for the faint of heart. Imagine standing before a massive stone door at dawn, your bare feet pressing into cool temple floors as priests in linen robes studied your every breath. The first test was always silence days spent motionless in meditation chambers where even a cough could mean dismissal. This wasn't about punishment, it was a filter. Only those who could still their minds enough to perceive the subtle harmonies of sacred shapes would recognize the whispers of truth hidden in temple walls. Physical trials came next, designed to mirror geometry's transformative journey. Initiates navigated pitch-black labyrinths using only touch, their fingers tracing corridors that curved according to Fibonacci sequences. One misstep in the darkness, and they'd find themselves lost in a dead end shaped like an incomplete dodecahedron, a silent rebuke of their spatial awareness. Some schools incorporated water rituals, requiring candidates to balance on submerged stones arranged in perfect Platonic solid formations while reciting mathematical proofs. The message was clear: mastery required aligning body, mind, and spirit with geometric perfection. The intellectual gauntlet proved most revealing. In Egypt's House of Life, initiates solved problems etched onto wax tablets, puzzles where the angles of pyramid shafts corresponded to specific star positions, or where the volume of a ceremonial cup had to match the golden ratio. Correct answers alone weren't enough. Scribes watched for the spark of insight, that moment when a student's eyes widened upon realizing the solution mirrored the pattern of veins in a lotus leaf. Greek mystery schools took this further, demanding oral examinations where initiates had to derive geometric theorems aloud while blindfolded, their voices measured for the resonant frequencies produced by specific shapes. But the final gate was always spiritual. At Eleusis, candidates endured a night-long vigil in a chamber where flickering torchlight cast shifting geometric shadows. As the hours passed, the walls themselves seemed to breathe, their carved patterns appearing to rotate like celestial spheres. Those who panicked were gently removed. Those who surrendered to the experience reported visions of luminous shapes unfolding like flowers in their minds. The Maya tested this surrender through sound, placing initiates in cenotes where chanting at specific frequencies caused water droplets to form perfect hexagons on obsidian mirrors. Success wasn't marked by applause but by a silent nod, the recognition that the candidate had glimpsed the living geometry connecting all things. What's remarkable is how these trials reflected the curriculum itself. The physical tests mirrored the precision needed to construct sacred architecture. The mental challenges cultivated the focus required to contemplate infinite fractal patterns. The spiritual ordeals opened the door to experiencing geometry not as abstraction, but as the very fabric of consciousness. Those who passed didn't just earn admission. They underwent metamorphosis, emerging with senses attuned to the hidden mathematics humming beneath the surface of the visible world. Their first lesson, that initiation wasn't an end but a beginning, the first step in remembering what their souls already knew. The temples didn't just echo with chants, they sang with them. Walk into the Hypogeum of Malta, a subterranean labyrinth carved from solid limestone 3,000 years before the birth of Christ, and you'll find something extraordinary. Whisper a word into one of its oval chambers, and the sound doesn't fade, it multiplies, vibrating through the stone at a frequency of 110 Hz, a tone modern neuroscientists have found triggers heightened states of awareness in the brain's right hemisphere. This wasn't accidental architecture. The builders shaped every curve and niche to turn sound into a tangible force, a technology of transcendence. At Delphi, the oracle didn't just inhale volcanic fumes to prophecy. She spoke into a chamber engineered as a perfect resonance box. The temple's Aditon, where she delivered her cryptic visions, was designed with elliptical walls that focused even the softest utterance into a haunting, omnidirectional hum. Recent acoustic studies show these vibrations would have interacted with the chamber's natural infrasound frequencies below 20 Hz, known to induce trance states. The ancients didn't need modern equipment to understand this phenomenon. They felt it in their bones. When Plutarch described the oracle's voice as filled with divine wind, he wasn't being poetic. He was documenting precise acoustic engineering. But how did they achieve such sophistication without oscilloscopes or tuning forks? The answer lies in water. Beneath many of these sacred sites, from the subterranean pools of Mexico's Chichen Itza to the flooded crypts beneath Egypt's Dendera temple, archaeologists have found evidence of liquid amplification. Water's unique property of conducting sound nearly 5 times faster than air turned these chambers into natural synthesizers. A chant in the right key could make standing waves ripple across the surface, creating geometric patterns in floating particles, a visible manifestation of sound's hidden architecture. The initiates didn't just hear harmony, they watched geometry come alive. The most striking proof comes from Scotland's Rosslyn Chapel, built centuries after the fall of these ancient schools, yet preserving their acoustic wisdom. Its musical cubes, 126 stone blocks carved with geometric patterns, aren't mere decoration. When struck, each emits a distinct musical tone, forming a 3-dimensional scale frozen in stone. Modern spectrographs reveal these cubes align with the exact frequencies of the medieval solfeggio scale, a 6-note sequence long associated with healing and spiritual awakening. The chapel's builders didn't just want music in their walls, they wanted the walls themselves to sing. This fusion of sound and shape reached its zenith in the Vedic tradition of Nada Yoga, the yoga of sound. Temples across India feature pillars that ring like bronze bells when tapped, their metallic alloys tuned to specific planetary frequencies. The Brihadiswara temple's main tower, carved from a single 60-ton granite block, resonates at the same frequency as the Earth's own electromagnetic field, 7.83 Hz, known as the Schumann resonance. Chant the right mantra here, and your voice doesn't just echo, it merges with the planet's heartbeat. What these schools understood was that sound doesn't just travel through space, it shapes it. When sand is scattered on a metal plate and subjected to specific tones, it arranges itself into perfect geometric mandalas, a phenomenon called cymatics, demonstrated in modern labs but clearly known to the ancients. The Mayans took this further, designing their ball courts as giant sound chambers where the impact of rubber balls would produce frequencies that made serpent carvings seem to hiss. In Egypt, the so-called unfinished obelisk still lies in its quarry, its sides etched with grooves that vibrate at the exact frequency needed to split granite, proof they used sound as a literal shaping tool. The ultimate lesson of these acoustic temples wasn't about music or architecture, it was about consciousness itself. Just as a crystal glass shatters when exposed to its resonant frequency, the human mind, immersed in precisely tuned spaces, could shed its ordinary perceptions. The initiates didn't just learn sacred geometry, they became it, their neural pathways rewired by vibrations that turned stone into song and air into architecture. When we stand in these chambers today, we're not just hearing echoes of the past, we're listening to a forgotten science, one that measured enlightenment not in degrees but in harmonics. The golden age of sacred geometry schools could not last forever. As empires rose and fell, Rome's legions marching across Europe, Islamic caliphates expanding their reach, Christian zealots burning libraries, the delicate threads of this ancient knowledge began to fray. The Library of Alexandria, that great beacon of learning, went up in flames, taking with it countless scrolls on harmonic proportions and celestial mathematics. In India, invading forces looted temple universities, scattering their geometric models and smashing yantras carved into stone. The Maya's sacred codices met a similar fate, burned by Spanish priests who saw only devilry in their precise astronomical calculations. What took millennia to refine could vanish in a single night of conquest or conversion. Yet some fragments survived, often in unexpected places. Byzantine monks, fleeing the fall of Constantinople, smuggled geometric treatises sewn into their robes, hiding them in monastery walls from Mount Athos to the Italian Alps. Islamic scholars, while rejecting the idolatrous imagery of temple art, preserved Pythagorean mathematics in their intricate tilework and astrolabes. Even the Christian Church, though it condemned geometry as pagan sorcery, quietly encoded its principles into cathedral designs, Chartres' labyrinth and Notre Dame's rose windows serving as silent homages to forbidden knowledge. The sacred had not disappeared, it had gone underground, whispered between master builders and alchemists who recognized these patterns as too powerful to lose. The suppression was not always violent, sometimes it came through neglect. As centralized empires fragmented, the vast resources needed to maintain temple universities dried up. The great stepwell classrooms of Gujarat silted over, the acoustic chambers beneath Greek temples filled with rubble. Without royal patronage, the rigorous training of initiates became impossible. A master might spend decades perfecting a single student's ability to visualize the 64 tetrahedron grid, but when famine or war came, such esoteric skills became luxuries no society could afford. The knowledge didn't vanish so much as scatter, like seeds carried by wind, taking root in unexpected soil. Ironically, the rise of dogmatic religions accelerated the decline even as they preserved fragments. The Vatican's condemnation of geomancy forced architects like Brunelleschi to hide their use of sacred proportions, encoding them into church designs under pious pretenses. Islamic bans on representational art pushed geometry into abstract arabesques, beautiful but stripped of their original cosmological meanings. In Tibet, Buddhist monks safeguarded mandala knowledge by treating it as purely symbolic, a spiritual metaphor rather than the operational science it once was. The wisdom survived, but its transformative power was often diluted, its edges smoothed to fit new orthodoxies. What was truly lost, not just techniques but ways of thinking. The ancient schools taught geometry as a living dialogue with the universe, a conversation modern science is only now rediscovering through quantum physics and fractal mathematics. When a medieval alchemist wrote of squaring the circle, he wasn't attempting an impossible math problem, he was describing a meditative practice to unify heaven and earth within the self. That experiential dimension, the heart of the mystery schools, proved hardest to preserve. Today, we can reconstruct their blueprints and decode their number systems, but the initiatory path, the visceral understanding that came from spending years tracing mandalas in sand or chanting in resonant chambers. That knowledge slipped through history's fingers like water. Yet traces remain, waiting to be pieced together like a scattered puzzle. The compass and straightedge passed from Egyptian priests to Greek philosophers, from Islamic scholars to Renaissance artists, each adding layers while obscuring origins. When a stonemason today unknowingly uses the same harmonic ratio to lay a patio that his ancestors used to align temples, the chain remains unbroken. The schools may have fallen, but their legacy lingers in the very bones of our world, in the spiral of a seashell, the angles of a snowflake, and the silent music of the stars overhead. Beneath the soaring spires of Chartres Cathedral, where stained glass transforms sunlight into jeweled geometry, a quiet revolution in stone was unfolding. The Knights Templar, returning from the Crusades with more than religious relics, brought back fragments of sacred knowledge, scrolls salvaged from burning libraries, oral traditions whispered by Sufi mystics, and most crucially, the geometric secrets of the East. These warrior monks became unlikely guardians, encoding sacred ratios into the very foundations of their preceptories. Their round churches, like London's Temple Church, weren't just architectural marvels. They were vibrational chambers, their circular layouts mirroring Jerusalem's Dome of the Rock, designed to amplify specific frequencies during Gregorian chants. The true masterpiece of this hidden transmission lies in the Gothic cathedral. Look closely at Notre Dame's rose windows. Their intricate tracery isn't merely decorative. Each petal, each intersecting arc follows the Fibonacci sequence, creating proportions that modern laser scans show produce harmonic resonance when wind passes through. The architects, often anonymous master masons, left their geometric signatures in subtle ways. The golden ratio governing the nave's height to width, Vesica Piscis shapes hidden in archways, even the precise angles of flying buttresses calculated to channel seismic energy away from delicate stained glass. These weren't just engineering solutions, they were acts of reverence, stone prayers to the mathematical order of creation. Freemasons inherited this legacy through the operative Masons' guilds. Their lodges became the new underground schools where compass and square took on sacred meaning. Initiation rituals reenacted the building of Solomon's temple, not as historical pageantry but as geometric allegory, the pillars, jachin, and bows representing the duality inherent in all forms, the checkered floor symbolizing the interplay of opposites. What set them apart was their democratization of knowledge. Where ancient temples restricted geometry to priestly elites, Masonic lodges taught stonemasons and merchants alike to see divine order in a brick's proportions or a vaulted ceiling's curvature. The most telling evidence lies in the cathedral's astronomical alignments. Amiens Cathedral's labyrinth, when walked at summer solstice, cast shadows that precisely trace the angles of Plato's perfect solids. Strasbourg's single spire aligns with Vega, the star sacred to Isis, at an angle matching the Great Pyramid slope. These weren't coincidences, they were conscious continuations of Egyptian and Greek traditions, disguised as Christian iconography. Even the gargoyles served a geometric purpose, their grotesque mouths positioned at acoustic nodes to diffuse wind harmonics that might otherwise damage delicate stone filigree. What saved this knowledge from total eradication was its practical utility. Kings might burn heretics but still needed architects who could calculate vault stresses using Fibonacci sequences. The church condemned magic while commissioning altars whose dimensions produced natural infrasound, enhancing worshippers' sense of awe. This dual legacy, both hidden and in plain sight, allowed sacred geometry to survive the Dark Ages not as esoteric lore but as living practice. When a modern architect unconsciously replicates the Parthenon's proportions in a skyscraper, or a musician tunes to a 440 Hz, a frequency found in ancient Greek tuning forks, the chain remains unbroken. The medieval keepers succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks reveal more than artistic genius. They expose a lifelong obsession with the hidden language of sacred geometry. The famed Vitruvian Man, often reduced to a simple study of human proportions, is actually a masterclass in ancient cosmic principles. Look closer. The circle enclosing his outstretched limbs isn't arbitrary. It mirrors Plato's description of the soul as a self-contained sphere, while the square framing his body echoes the Pythagorean concept of Earth as the realm of fixed measurement. This wasn't just anatomy, it was alchemy, fusing the microcosm of man with the macrocosm of the universe. Da Vinci's fascination with these patterns went far deeper than one iconic sketch. His private journals contain hundreds of geometric studies, from the spiral growth patterns of plants to the vortices of water, each annotated with observations about their mathematical perfection. In the margins of his designs for flying machines, you'll find meticulous calculations based on the golden ratio, applied to wing structures in ways modern aerodynamics would later confirm as optimal. Even his unfinished adoration of the Magi hides a geometric substructure. Infrared scans reveal compass-drawn circles beneath the paint, mapping the figures onto a flower of life grid. What connected Renaissance masters like Da Vinci to these ancient principles? The answer lies in a shadow network of knowledge keepers. During his apprenticeship in Florence, Da Vinci gained access to texts preserved by Byzantine scholars fleeing Constantinople's fall, manuscripts containing Euclid's lost commentaries and Arabic translations of Pythagorean teachings. Later, his patron Ludovico Sforza introduced him to Franciscan monks who secretly practiced sacred geometry, using church designs to encode harmonic ratios. These influences converged in works like The Last Supper, where the disciples are arranged in groups mirroring musical intervals, and the vanishing point aligns with Christ's right eye at an angle matching the Great Pyramid slope. The real breakthrough came when Da Vinci merged geometry with empirical observation. While medieval scholars debated Plato's forms in the abstract, he tested them in the physical world. His studies of heart valves showed how their spiral structures followed the same logarithmic curves as nautilus shells. Architectural sketches for Milan's canals applied Vesica Piscis proportions to water flow dynamics, anticipating fluid mechanics by centuries. Even his famed mirror writing, long dismissed as mere secrecy, may have been a nod to geometric symmetry, with each reversed character maintaining perfect proportional balance. This fusion of art and mathematics wasn't unique to Da Vinci. Botticelli's Birth of Venus positions the goddess at the intersection of a pentagram hidden in the seashell. Michelangelo carved David with a spine following the Fibonacci spiral's curvature. Raphael's school of Athens centers on Plato, pointing upward to the ideal forms, while Aristotle gestures downward to earthly geometry, a visual manifesto of the Renaissance's sacred synthesis. What these masters understood was that sacred geometry wasn't just a tool for composition, it was a bridge between realms. When Da Vinci scribbled, "The painter's mind must become like a mirror," in his notebooks, he wasn't speaking metaphorically. He knew that by internalizing nature's geometric language, an artist could reflect more than surfaces. They could reveal the very architecture of creation. The Vitruvian Man endures not as a relic but as a challenge, to see ourselves not separate from the cosmos, but as living expressions of its perfect design. Today's laser scanners and satellite imaging are peeling back layers of time, revealing geometric perfection in places once thought primitive. Take the Great Pyramid. Its base perimeter divided by twice its height gives pi to 4 decimal places, a ratio modern engineers struggle to replicate without computers. But the real shock came when researchers mapped Angkor Wat using LiDAR technology. The entire temple complex mirrors the Draco constellation's shape, its moats and towers positioned to recreate the night sky on Earth. These aren't just symbolic gestures, they're mathematical blueprints, precise enough that modern architects using 3D modeling software can't explain how ancient builders achieved such accuracy with rudimentary tools. The breakthrough isn't just in discovering these patterns, but in understanding their purpose. When acoustic engineers analyzed Chichen Itza's El Castillo pyramid, they found its staircases act as sound diffusers. A handclap at the base produces an echo mimicking the Quetzal bird's cry, a deliberate sonic effect achieved through step angles matching sacred ratios. Similarly, infrared scans of Petra's treasury show its facade carved to amplify solstice sunlight, projecting beams that illuminate hidden geometric carvings only visible for minutes each year. These weren't decorative flourishes, they were interactive lessons in cosmic harmony, designed to teach through direct experience. What's revolutionizing our understanding is the cross-cultural consistency of these codes. The same golden ratio governing the Parthenon's columns appears in Cambodia's Ta Prohm temple, where tree roots weave through stone in perfect Fibonacci spirals. The Pentagon's recent declassified studies on harmonic resonance accidentally confirmed what the Maya knew, that specific geometric shapes can focus electromagnetic energy. At Bosnia's controversial Pyramid of the Sun, ground-penetrating radar revealed subterranean chambers with quartz-lined walls that still emit measurable energy pulses at frequencies matching human brainwave patterns. The most tantalizing finds come from artificial intelligence. When researchers fed thousands of temple blueprints into machine learning systems, the AI identified recurring geometric templates, complex variations on the flower of life pattern that correspond to natural phenomena. One algorithm discovered that Cambodia's pre-Vihir temple's layout mirrors the molecular structure of water, while another found that Egypt's Abu Simbel aligns with sound wave interference patterns. These digital tools are becoming the new initiates, decoding what took human scholars centuries to grasp, that sacred geometry wasn't just spiritual symbolism, but a sophisticated science of vibrational engineering. Yet for all our technology, some mysteries resist explanation. How did the builders of Peru's Sacsayhuaman fit multi-ton stones with joints so precise a razor blade can't slide between them? Why do certain chambers in Newgrange's passage tomb vibrate at frequencies known to alter human consciousness? The stones remain silent, but their geometry speaks a language we're only beginning to relearn. What's clear is that these ancient schools didn't just study the universe's patterns. They built them into the world around us, leaving behind not just monuments, but invitations to see reality through the lens of sacred shape and sound. The old masters who traced circles in temple sand and carved the flower of life into granite would have marveled at what modern microscopes and telescopes now reveal, that the universe speaks their geometric language. At the quantum level, particles don't move in chaotic randomness. They vibrate in precise harmonic patterns, forming geometric waveforms that mirror the Sri Yantra's interlocking triangles. Even the vacuum of space isn't empty, it's a seething foam of tetrahedral and octahedral energy fluctuations, a dynamic confirmation of Plato's assertion that these shapes underpin reality. The more physicists peer into the fabric of existence, the more it resembles the chalkboards of ancient mystery schools. Consider fractals, those infinitely repeating patterns found in coastlines, ferns, and lightning. When mathematicians first described them in the 1970s, they assumed they'd discovered something new. Yet step into Cambodia's 12th century Angkor Wat, and you'll find the same fractal geometry in the temple's concentric galleries, each level a scaled repetition of the last. The Maya anticipated this concept centuries earlier, designing Capon's hieroglyphic stairway as a fractal equation in stone, where each step's carvings mirror the larger narrative. These cultures didn't have supercomputers to model infinite recursion. They had something more profound: the observational wisdom to recognize nature's self-similar blueprints and replicate them in sacred spaces. The Fibonacci sequence, that elegant numerical progression where each number is the sum of the two preceding ones, manifests from spiral galaxies to sunflower seed arrangements. Modern astrophysicists calculate that galaxies like the Milky Way spin in logarithmic spirals matching Fibonacci ratios, their arms unfurling at angles identical to those in the Great Pyramid's air shaft. Meanwhile, botanists find the same sequence governing leaf arrangements around stems, ensuring each leaf maximizes sunlight exposure. This isn't coincidence, it's optimization through geometry, a principle the Egyptians encoded in the helical design of their lotus columns and the Greeks embedded in the Parthenon's curvature. String theory, one of physics' most ambitious frameworks, proposes that reality consists of tiny vibrating strings whose harmonics give rise to particles. Remarkably, these theoretical strings oscillate in geometric configurations that ancient texts described as the music of the spheres. The dodecahedron, revered by Plato as the shape of the heavens, now appears in quantum gravity models as a potential structure of spacetime itself. Researchers at CERN have even detected geometric resonances in particle collisions that echo the harmonic intervals Pythagoras identified in vibrating strings 2,500 years ago. Perhaps the most startling convergence is in crystallography. When scientists examined the atomic structure of quartz, a mineral used extensively in temple construction, they found its silicon dioxide molecules arrange themselves in perfect hexagonal patterns that amplify and store energy. This explains why granite chambers like the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid exhibit unusual electromagnetic properties. The stones themselves are geometric antennas, tuned to frequencies that modern science is only beginning to measure. The ancients didn't just build with stone, they harnessed its crystalline geometry to create resonant environments for consciousness expansion. Dark matter, that elusive substance comprising most of the universe's mass, provides another clue. Recent simulations suggest it forms an invisible cosmic web with nodes and filaments, arranged once again in geometric patterns resembling neural networks or the branching veins of leaves. It's as if the universe operates on a principle the temple schools taught all along. That scale is an illusion, and the same geometric rules govern everything from atoms to galaxies. When a Vedic rishi described creation as a net of jewels where each gem reflects all others, he wasn't speaking metaphorically but describing what physicists now call quantum entanglement. The true revelation isn't that ancient cultures guessed right about geometry's role in the cosmos, it's that they knew in a way we're only rediscovering. They didn't derive these insights through equations but through direct perception, training their minds to see the mathematical scaffolding behind appearances. Where modern science uses particle accelerators, they used meditation and ritual to probe reality's fabric. Their legacy challenges us to expand our definition of knowledge, to consider that the compass and straightedge might still have something to teach the supercomputer, not about calculation, but about the living intelligence woven into space, time, and the very stones beneath our feet. Sacred geometry isn't confined to ancient temples. It pulses through modern life in ways most never notice. Walk through any major city, and you're surrounded by its principles. the Parthenon's golden ratio replicated in skyscraper facades, the Fibonacci spiral guiding the curvature of suspension bridges. Architects like Le Corbusier openly used these proportions in his modular system, designing entire cities where every doorway and staircase followed harmonic scales meant to resonate with human biology. Even IKEA best-selling furniture lines unknowingly mirror sacred ratios, their dimensions often aligning with the same geometric patterns that made Gothic cathedrals feel so intuitively balanced. Healers have resurrected these ancient practices with startling results. Crystal therapists arrange stones in flower of life formations, reporting amplified energy flows measurable by biofeedback devices. Sound healers use tuning forks calibrated to frequencies found in temple chambers, creating standing waves that rearrange water molecules into perfect geometric clusters, a phenomenon visible under microscopes. In Japan, researchers documented how hospital rooms designed with sacred proportions reduced patient recovery times by nearly 20%, their walls subtly influencing stress hormone levels through unseen geometric harmonies. Meditation takes on new dimensions when geometry becomes the focus. Tibetan monks still create intricate sand mandalas not as temporary art, but as vibrational tools, their symmetrical patterns generating measurable electromagnetic fields. Neuroscience studies show that visualizing the Metatron's cube during meditation synchronizes brain hemispheres more effectively than traditional mindfulness practices. Apps now guide users through geometric breathing, where inhales and exhales trace the sides of Platonic solids, a technique derived from Eleusinian mystery school rituals. The most cutting-edge applications bridge science and spirituality. Quantum physicists use geometric models to map the behavior of subatomic particles, finding uncanny parallels between electron orbitals and the Sri Yantras interlocking triangles. Materials scientists studying graphene's hexagonal structure have patented designs inspired by ancient yantras, creating ultra-efficient energy storage systems. Even NASA has experimented with tetrahedral spacecraft designs after discovering their natural resistance to cosmic radiation, a principle the Egyptians seemingly understood when they capped pyramids with pyramidions. What makes sacred geometry endure isn't mysticism, but measurable effect. When a concert hall's acoustics follow the same ratios as a Maya ball court, audiences describe the music as transcendent. When urban planners lay out parks using Vesica Piscis proportions, visitors unconsciously gravitate to sweet spots matching the geometry's focal points. This isn't coincidence, it's human physiology responding to patterns hardwired into nature itself. The architects of antiquity didn't just build beautiful structures, they cracked a code to harmonious living that we're only now verifying with lasers and algorithms. Their legacy whispers through every space that makes us feel inexplicably at peace, every design that functions with uncanny efficiency, a proof that their geometric wisdom wasn't lost, just waiting for us to recognize it anew. Not every academic embraces the idea that ancient temples were built as vessels of sacred geometry. Skeptics argue that humans naturally seek patterns, even where none exist, a phenomenon called apophenia. They point out that basic geometric shapes like circles and squares appear universally because they're simple to construct, not because they hold esoteric meaning. When a pyramid's proportions accidentally align with pi or a temple corridor resonates at a specific frequency, naysayers dismiss it as coincidence, the inevitable result of countless builders experimenting with form and function over millennia. Yet this skepticism often overlooks the mathematical precision embedded in structures separated by oceans and centuries. The Great Pyramid's alignment with true north isn't just close, it's accurate to within 3/60ths of a degree, a feat requiring knowledge modern engineers would struggle to replicate without GPS. The probability that multiple cultures independently developed identical complex ratios like the golden mean or the square root of 2 defies statistical likelihood. Even more compelling are the niche techniques shared across continents. The Maya and Egyptians both used concave faces on their pyramids to manipulate sunlight during solstices, a design choice with no practical structural benefit but profound symbolic significance. Critics also underestimate the oral and written records affirming intentionality. Plato's dialogues explicitly describe Atlantis' circular city plans as embodiments of cosmic harmony. Vedic texts detail yantra construction with mathematical rigor, specifying that errors in angles could displease the gods. The Dresden Codex, a surviving Mayan manuscript, includes tables for Venus cycles so precise they're still used by astronomers today. These aren't vague myths, they're technical manuals disguised as poetry. The middle ground may lie in acknowledging that sacred geometry wasn't mystical to its practitioners, it was applied science. When a medieval mason carved a labyrinth into a cathedral floor, he wasn't just decorating, he was creating a calculable path for pilgrimage. The acoustic properties of Malta's hypogeum weren't accidental, they were engineered to induce trance states for ritual purposes. To reduce these achievements to coincidence is to ignore the ingenuity of cultures that, without modern tools, mapped the heavens in stone and harmonized architecture with the human nervous system. What skeptics call overinterpretation, practitioners might call lost literacy. We've forgotten how to read the geometric language these builders left behind, not because it wasn't real, but because our education prioritizes equations over embodied knowledge. The truth likely transcends both extremes. Not every spiral is sacred, but when the same complex patterns emerge in temples from Cambodia to Karnak, it's less about finding meaning where none exists and more about recognizing a forgotten science of resonance, one that wove mathematics into the very fabric of spiritual life. The stones themselves are the rebuttal whispering across time that these geometries weren't accidents, but a deliberate dialogue between Earth and cosmos. Unexplained anomalies in ancient architecture challenge everything we think we know about early civilizations. Take Puma Punku in Bolivia, a sprawling complex where massive stone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, fit together with joints so precise that not even a razor blade can slide between them. The andesite stones display cuts so clean and angles so exact that modern engineers struggle to replicate them without computer-guided machinery. Even more baffling are the H-shaped clamps chiseled into these blocks, not carved, but seemingly melted into place with a technique lost to history. These aren't rough-hewn monuments, they're geometric puzzles crafted with what appears to be advanced precision technology. The mystery deepens when you examine the tools these builders supposedly used. Mainstream archaeology suggests simple bronze chisels and stone hammers, yet the andesite at Puma Punku ranks 7 on the Mohs hardness scale, just 2 points below diamond. Try scoring such rock with primitive tools, and you'd shatter your implements before making a dent. Even more perplexing are the drill holes found in some blocks, perfectly cylindrical with spiral grooves indicating a rotational speed and pressure that shouldn't have been possible over 3,000 years ago. The stones themselves tell a different story than the textbooks, one where geometric mastery and material science intersected in ways we've yet to fully comprehend. Similar enigmas appear across the globe. In Egypt, the unfinished obelisk at Aswan reveals tool marks that suggest the builders weren't just pounding stone, they were somehow softening granite before shaping it. The precision-cut sarcophagi in the Serapeum of Saqqara, each weighing 80 tons, fit their underground niches with airtight tolerances that would challenge modern CNC machines. Meanwhile, at Japan's Yonaguni Monument, submerged megaliths display stepped terraces and right angles so precise that geologists debate whether they're natural formations or the remnants of a drowned civilization wielding forgotten geometric techniques. What connects these sites isn't just precision, it's intentional harmonic design. The stones at Puma Punku resonate at frequencies that match the Schumann resonance, Earth's natural electromagnetic pulse. The Serapeum's boxes vibrate at 110 Hz, a frequency known to alter human brain activity. These aren't random quirks, they're evidence of a sophisticated understanding of how geometry interacts with energy. The builders didn't just cut stone, they tuned it, creating structures that hummed in harmony with the planet itself. The most compelling theory isn't about alien intervention, but lost human knowledge. Ancient texts from India describe Vimanas, mythical flying machines powered by mercury vortex engines, a concept NASA now studies for advanced propulsion. Could the same culture that wrote the Vedas have possessed geometric secrets allowing them to manipulate stone? The Baghdad Battery, a 2,000-year-old clay jar containing a copper cylinder and iron rod, proves ancient peoples experimented with electricity. Combine this with piezoelectric materials like quartz, found in many sacred sites, and a picture emerges: civilizations that harnessed natural energies through geometric principles we're only beginning to rediscover. Perhaps the greatest clue lies in the shared language of these sites. From Bolivia to Egypt, builders incorporated the same angles. 52 degrees appears in both the Great Pyramid and Puma Punku's blocks, an inclination that just happens to optimize energy flow in certain crystal structures. The flower of life symbol appears on temple walls from Abydos to China, suggesting a global curriculum of sacred geometry. These weren't separate cultures stumbling upon similar techniques. They were participants in a worldwide tradition that understood matter not as inert, but as energy waiting to be shaped by geometric intention. Modern attempts to replicate these feats reveal how much we've underestimated the ancients. When a team tried to move a 1-ton replica of a Moai statue using traditional methods, it took weeks of labor, yet Easter Island's original builders transported hundreds in a fraction of the time. Experiments with sound levitation, inspired by Tibetan accounts of monks moving stones with chanting, have shown acoustic vibrations can reduce apparent weight. Maybe the answer isn't lost technology, but lost techniques, ways of seeing and interacting with stone that turn geometry into a tangible force. The stones of Puma Punku don't just defy explanation. They invite us to reconsider what ancient civilizations were truly capable of when they viewed the world through the lens of sacred shape and sound. Sacred geometry has always been a magnet for wild theories, some intriguing, others stretching credulity to its limits. The whispers of secret societies like the Illuminati using these ancient patterns to control world events have fueled countless books and documentaries. Then there are the more outlandish claims that extraterrestrial beings gifted these designs to early civilizations, or that pyramids functioned as interstellar power plants. While these ideas often lack concrete evidence, their persistence reveals something profound about human nature. We're wired to search for hidden order in chaos, to believe that geometric perfection couldn't possibly be the work of mere mortals. Take the Great Pyramid's dimensions, its precise alignment with true north, the way its base perimeter divided by twice its height equals pi. These mathematical marvels have led some to propose that its builders possessed knowledge far beyond their time, perhaps even aided by advanced alien technology. Similar theories swirl around Puma Punku's laser-like stone cuts or the Nazca Line's gigantic geometric glyphs, visible only from the air. Skeptics dismiss these as coincidences or exaggerations, but the sheer volume of these anomalies across cultures keeps the debate alive. What's fascinating isn't just the theories themselves, but why they resonate. Sacred geometry touches a primal nerve, the suspicion that our ancestors knew more than history credits them for. When modern scientists discover that the golden ratio governs everything from galaxy spirals to DNA, it's tempting to assume this wisdom couldn't have emerged organically. The allure of a lost civilization, whether Atlantis or star visitors, offers a seductive explanation. Even mainstream archaeologists admit there are gaps in our understanding of how certain feats were achieved, leaving room for speculation to flourish. Yet the truth might be more extraordinary than fiction. Instead of aliens or shadowy cabals, consider the possibility that ancient cultures developed profound intuitive knowledge through generations of observation and ritual. The Dogon tribe's precise astronomy, the Mayas' Venus cycle calculations, and Egypt's architectural perfection could stem from a forgotten science of harmony, one that blended meditation, mathematics, and meticulous record-keeping. These weren't mystical secrets but cultivated skills, much like a concert pianist today masters scales until they become second nature. The conspiracy theories, then, are a mirror. They reflect our own disconnect from the natural world's patterns, our impatience with the slow accumulation of knowledge. In an age of instant answers, the idea that monks might spend decades mastering the flower of life through sand drawings feels alien. But perhaps the real mystery isn't who built these structures, it's how we lost the patience to understand their methods. The stones don't whisper of aliens or Illuminati. They murmur of human potential, of minds trained to see the universe not as random, but as a geometric hymn waiting to be decoded. The ancient mystery schools may have vanished beneath the sands of time, but their geometric wisdom remains alive and accessible, if you know where to look. Start by studying the patterns themselves. The flower of life isn't just an artifact behind museum glass. Print it out and trace its overlapping circles with your finger, feeling the rhythm of its creation sequence. Notice how the first circle represents unity, the second introduces duality, and by the seventh, a harmonic matrix emerges. Modern apps can animate these forms in 3D, letting you rotate Metatron's cube or unfold a dodecahedron with a swipe, revealing how these shapes nest within one another like cosmic Russian dolls. For a more tactile experience, visit sites where geometry still hums in the stones. Walk the labyrinth at Chartres Cathedral at dawn, following its 11 concentric paths, a walking meditation that mirrors the soul's journey inward. In Mexico, stand beneath Chichen Itza's pyramid during the equinox and watch as the serpent of light slithers down the steps, a reminder that sacred geometry isn't just theory but a living dialogue between earth and sky. Even local landmarks might surprise you. City parks often incorporate golden ratio layouts, and historic buildings frequently hide geometric motifs in their ironwork or tile floors, turning an afternoon stroll into a treasure hunt for hidden patterns. Meditation unlocks geometry's most profound lessons. Try this. Visualize a tetrahedron, a pyramid with 3 triangular sides floating at your core. As you inhale, imagine its edges glowing brighter. As you exhale, sense its stability grounding you. Advanced practitioners might chant specific tones while mentally rotating a Sri Yantra, syncing breath with its interlocking triangles. Neuroscientists have found that such practices synchronize brain hemispheres, inducing states of clarity ancient initiates likely cultivated in their underground chambers. You don't need a temple to experiment with sound harmonics. Fill a bowl with water and sing a steady tone into it. Watch as geometric wave patterns emerge on the surface, just as they did for priests in Egypt's water-filled crypts. Tuning forks tuned to 432 Hz, a frequency found in ancient Greek instruments, can recreate the vibrational baths used to prepare students for initiation. Modern cymatic apps transform your smartphone into a portable resonance lab, making visible the invisible geometries hidden in every note. The true power lies in application. Landscape designers use sacred proportions to create gardens that feel inexplicably harmonious, while therapists employ mandala coloring to reduce stress through geometric focus. Even programmers harness these principles, using Fibonacci sequences to write efficient code proof that this ancient science still optimizes modern systems. The compass and straightedge haven't disappeared. They've evolved into the tools we hold every day, waiting to redraw the connection between human creativity and the universe's hidden blueprints. Perhaps the simplest doorway is the most profound: observation. Notice how tree branches spiral to maximize sunlight, how storm systems swirl in logarithmic curves, how your own palm prints echo the river deltas below. The schools taught that geometry isn't just a subject to study, it's a lens through which to see the world. When you spot the same angles in a spiderweb and a skyscraper's steel frame, you begin to decipher the silent language the masters left behind, written not in scrolls but in the very fabric of reality. Their classrooms had no walls because the cosmos itself was their syllabus. The convergence of cutting-edge science and ancient geometric wisdom is reshaping how we envision the future, not as a return to mysticism, but as an evolution of understanding. Quantum physicists now model subatomic interactions using geometric frameworks that mirror the Sri Yantras' interlocking triangles, while neuroscientists map brainwave synchronization during meditation to the same harmonic intervals Pythagoras identified in vibrating strings. This isn't coincidence, it's the emergence of a new paradigm where sacred geometry becomes the bridge between measurable phenomena and experiential truth. Picture cities designed as living fractals, where buildings echo the branching patterns of trees and rivers. Architects like Buckminster Fuller pioneered this vision with geodesic domes, structures so efficient they enclose maximum space with minimal materials. Today's biodynamic architects take it further, crafting hospitals where recovery rooms follow the golden ratio, reducing patient stress through subconscious geometric harmony. In Zurich, a concert hall ceiling replicates the cellular structure of sunflower seeds, creating acoustics so precise that musicians describe playing there as hearing geometry. These aren't aesthetic choices, they're applications of an ancient principle. Environments shaped by nature's blueprints foster well-being. Education stands on the brink of a geometric renaissance. Montessori schools already use tactile geometric solids to teach mathematical intuition, but imagine curricula where students learn chemistry through the Platonic solids' molecular relationships, or study history by tracing civilizations' rise and fall through their architectural proportions. Silicon Valley innovators are experimenting with neurogeometric learning, augmented reality programs that let students walk through vibrating models of atomic structures or manipulate 3D Fibonacci spirals with hand gestures. This tactile approach mirrors the mystery school's methods, proving that some truths are best grasped not through equations alone, but through embodied experience. Technology's next frontier may lie in geometric harmonics. Cymatic research shows how sound shapes matter into sacred patterns, a principle engineers now apply to non-invasive medical therapies where specific frequencies target tumors with geometric precision. Quantum computers use dodecahedral error correction codes, eerily fulfilling Plato's assertion that this shape governed the heavens. Even space exploration embraces these principles. NASA proposed orbital habitats employ torus shapes, the same donut form found in everything from magnetic fields around planets to the vibrational fields around ancient stone circles. The most profound shift may be in how we perceive consciousness itself. Cutting-edge theories suggest our brains might function as quantum harmonic oscillators, resonating with the geometry of space-time. Meditation studies using EEG and fMRI reveal that visualizing the flower of life activates the brain's default mode network, the seat of transcendent experience. This echoes the temple initiates practice of geometric contemplation, where focused attention on these patterns induced states of unified awareness. Modern seekers might soon don VR headsets to meditate within pulsating Metatrons cubes, merging millennia-old wisdom with immersive technology. What makes this resurgence vital is its democratization. Where once these secrets were guarded in underground chambers, apps now generate real-time cymatic visuals from your voice, and open-source algorithms map sacred geometry onto urban planning grids. The challenge isn't accessing the knowledge, it's applying it ethically. As we redesign society's foundations with these principles, we must ask, will geometric harmony become another commodified tool, or will it guide us toward a world where infrastructure heals rather than exploits, where technology connects rather than isolates? The temples of tomorrow might not be stone structures, but resonant fields of intention, invisible cathedrals of interconnected thought, built with the oldest and newest tools humanity possesses, the compass of curiosity and the straight edge of reverence. The sacred geometry schools hidden beneath ancient temples weren't just classrooms, they were gateways to a radical way of seeing. Every carved symbol, every precisely angled corridor, every resonating chamber served as a mirror held up to the universe, revealing an astonishing truth: chaos is an illusion. Behind life's apparent randomness hums an exquisite order, written in the language of shape and sound. These ancient adepts didn't merely study geometry, they communed with it, recognizing that the same spirals in galaxies swirl in seashells, that the angles binding atoms also structure cathedrals. Their greatest revelation wasn't about measurement, but meaning, that by aligning with these eternal patterns, we don't just understand the cosmos, we harmonize with it. What makes their legacy urgent today isn't the precision of their calculations, but the profundity of their vision. In an age dominated by fragmentation where science, art, and spirituality often seem at odds, these schools remind us of a time when knowledge was whole. A Mayan priest astronomer tracking Venus didn't distinguish between science and sacred. The numbers were prayers, the star charts were hymns. Modern quantum physics now echoes this unity, discovering geometric patterns at the heart of reality that the temple initiates once meditated upon. The distance between their stone compasses and our particle accelerators may be vast, but the underlying recognition is identical. The universe sings in geometric harmony. This perspective transforms how we engage with our world. Notice how smartphone screens use golden rectangles to feel right in your hand. How architects unconsciously incorporate Pythagorean ratios into buildings that stand the test of time. These aren't aesthetic accidents, they're unconscious nods to the universal grammar these ancient masters decoded. Even our bodies whisper these truths: the cochlea's logarithmic spiral, the Fibonacci sequence in our finger bones, the dodecahedral structure of our cell membranes. We aren't just observers of sacred geometry, we're living expressions of it. The real mystery isn't how these schools achieved such sophistication without modern tools, but why their insights still feel revolutionary. Perhaps because they point to a radical democratization of wisdom, a recognition that the cosmos blueprints aren't locked in elite institutions, but etched into every leaf, every snowflake, every breath. When a medieval mason carved a labyrinth into a cathedral floor, he wasn't creating a puzzle to be solved, but an invitation to awaken. That same invitation extends to us now, not beneath temple stones, but in the ordinary magic of a spider's web glistening with dew, or the hypnotic spin of a child's top tracing perfect circles in the air. As our screens fill with digital noise and our lives fracture into tabs and timelines, these geometric whispers grow louder. They remind us that belonging isn't something to achieve, but to remember, a homecoming to the patterns that birthed galaxies and hummingbirds alike. The temple schools may lie in ruins, but their syllabus is written in starlight and soil, waiting for any who pause to trace the connections. So the next time you catch yourself mesmerized by a honeycomb's hexagons or the fractal branches of a winter tree, know this: you're not just seeing nature's artistry. You're glimpsing the edges of a conversation that began millennia ago in candlelit chambers, where the first geometers discovered we weren't separate from the universe's design. We were its living, breathing verse. The compass still turns, the circles still spin, and the invitation remains to step beyond measurement into wonder and let geometry remind you who and what you